The race for the 1st Congressional District of South Carolina is one of the most contested in the country. Our first guest is currently a state representative for the 99th District. She's the first female to graduate from the Citadel and has been endorsed by former governor and ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley. Nancy Mace, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to voters directly about this election cycle.
Well, voters have already begun casting their ballots in South Carolina. How confident are you that your constituents have heard your message amid a pandemic and will vote to unseat Democratic incumbent Joe Cunningham?
Right now, the momentum is really on our side with our campaign. It's very exciting. I only had one full quarter for the general election, and we outraised the incumbent by over $500,000. And when we talk to voters who are going to the polls every day right now, because you can go and vote at the Election Commission right now, you can vote absentee in person right now today. There is so much momentum for our campaign. People are very energized. We lost this seat 2 years ago because we got complacent and we stayed home. And now people realize that, and they are more motivated than ever to win this seat in November.
And among the most important issues that concern voters, the economy, taxes, offshore drilling, race relations, health care, and abortion. This year has thrown everyone in a major curveball. So if elected, what are your plans to help small businesses in the Lowcountry? And as a representative, what have you already done?
Right. All of those things are very important to voters in the Lowcountry. And as a state lawmaker, I've worked on every single one of the issues that you mentioned, where I've filed legislation, drafted legislation, passed legislation, made legislation into law, or worked on it on all of those issues. So I'm already doing the job right now, which is really important. Democrat Joe Cunningham, he just put Paris Island and Beaufort on the chopping block. For this 1st congressional district, that's 6,000 jobs and almost $800 million to our economy. He's voted to raise taxes and Green New Deal mandates to the tune of $200 billion already. You're talking to someone who's a staunch fiscal conservative. Every single vote I've taken, 100% has been to lower taxes, and I've pledged never to raise them. And as someone who has started a small business, operated and owned one, I know the challenges facing small businesses, and I've been working on those issues as a state lawmaker and through COVID-19.
Now, Nancy, you graduated from the Corps of Cadets from the Citadel with a business administration degree. You also graduated with a journalism degree. As far as your business is concerned, you say that you know what small businesses are feeling. What small business did you start yourself?
Yeah, so I've been in business for 21 years. My background is actually in technology. When I was a cadet at the Citadel, I taught myself how to code HTML. So one of my first jobs is in technology. And when I had my children in 2008, my son was 2 years old and my daughter was getting ready to be born. I knew that I wanted to be at home with my kids, but I also wanted to work. So I started my own technology and business consulting company. And then when Tim Scott ran for office for Congress, I actually did a lot of this digital communications, which is where my communications degree comes in.
Let's move on to taxes. Now, in your first debate with Joe Cunningham, a particular number kept popping up, 30%. He said that you would raise taxes by 30%. What is your position on raising taxes, and is this some arbitrary number? What is he referring to?
Totally false. There are a lot of dishonest statements made by Democrat Joe Cunningham and the super PACs by Democrats that are supporting him. I don't want arsenic in the water. Those are not my legs on the beach on those horrible offshore drilling bills. I'm against arsenic. I'm against offshore drilling, and I don't want to raise taxes. I'm a big fan of reforming our tax system because our tax system is unfair. The IRS allows loopholes that allow the rich to write off their losses in a way that they don't pay any taxes. And so I think the fair way for us to reform tax policy in this country, one, is actually to abolish the IRS and go to a tax that taxes people on what they spend versus what they earn, so that you don't have those loopholes so people can get out of paying their fair share of taxes. And it eliminates the federal income tax. I have a 100% record of lowering taxes. I've pledged never to raise them. And in 2019, I earned the Taxpayer Hero Award. My opponent, on the other hand, who makes these false statements, has voted to raise taxes time and time again. He supports Biden's $3 trillion tax deal that raises taxes on the middle class. Says he's against the Green New Deal, but he's voted for $200 billion in Green New Deal mandates, which are going to be taxes on the middle class.
All right. Well, we do need to take a break here. When we come back, I want to talk about offshore drilling and have a few other questions for you in regards to health care. We're going to do that now. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. She's the daughter of a highly decorated retired Army Brigadier General and Citadel graduate. Besides former Governor Nikki Haley's endorsement, she's endorsed by South Carolina Medal of Honor recipient Major General James Livingston. And Nancy Mace, you are running against Democratic incumbent Joe Cunningham, who won what had been a Republican-led first congressional district for decades. So what is the edge that you bring that could sway voters back to Republican, and why is it important for you to change your status from District 99 to District 1?
Right. Well, I grew up here in the Low Country. This is a place where I call home, and I'm raising my family, and I work here. I have a lot of ties here through the Citadel, through the military, but also in business here locally. I want to serve the community that has given me so much opportunity, because my life has been really a series of second chances, and I want to give back to a community that's given me so much. But the first congressional district is looking for someone who's got an independent streak, who's an independent thinker. And I don't talk about working across the aisle. I actually have done it. So while folks know me as a staunch fiscal conservative, I've earned awards for my positions on fiscal and economic policy and jobs and everything else. But I'm also known as someone who's worked across the aisle to get things done. And even the last bill that a few months ago that Governor McMaster signed into law was on prison reform. Well, that was my bill, and it passed with 100% bipartisan support. So not a single member of the Democrat or Republican Party actually voted against it.
Well, let's talk about President Trump. He halted any orders on offshore drilling off of the coast of South Carolina, as well as wind farms. Now, what's your feeling on supporting the latter source of energy? But
Right.
should things change higher up in the chain? How are you going to make sure that your voters, your constituents, are protected?
Right. So I supported the president's ban. It's a 10-year ban on drilling off South Carolina's coast. The state of South Carolina has also done it through budgetary means every year in the budget that we pass every year. And that's something else I've also supported. I'm a big fan of alternative energy. So if you look at my state legislative record, I've supported alternative energy forms like solar or exploring wind farms and finding out what the opportunities and availability would be for those kinds of things as well. It's really important that we don't just rely on our natural resources, that we look to other areas and invest in those opportunities. In South Carolina, our Low Country has been very good, especially on solar, something that I have tremendous support for in finding alternative methods of energy.
In the first debate with Joe Cunningham, you felt rather attacked as a single mother after having missed some votes. Joe Cunningham kind of brought that to the floor. So how do you feel that your personal circumstance would affect or enhance your performance as a representative of the first district?
Working moms can do it all. Moms, I mean, every mother can do it all. And we juggle so much. You know, when we want to compare records to Democrat Joe Cunningham and myself, in my first 2 years of office, I missed 2 days. He's missed 7 days. He missed voting on the entire budget for the government. He missed votes on veterans housing for our military veterans. And so I want to compare apples to apples. This year has been unprecedented. You can't go to session when you have COVID-19. I mean, those things, you know.
You had COVID-19 at once.
What's that? Yeah, I had COVID-19. I missed session because of it. And so, you know, this has been a very unusual year for a lot of us, for a lot of working families. As you saw earlier on the break, I homeschool my kids here at the house, in addition to campaigning and being a state legislator and working. We can do it all.
Switching gears, confirmation hearings for Amy Coney Barrett are underway this week. She's been attacked for her religious beliefs, and many liberals are worried that she could overturn Roe v. Wade if confirmed as a Supreme Court justice. Early on in the primaries, your opponent, Kathy Landing, accused you of being insufficiently committed to opposing abortion. A lot of your constituents are of faith, but I want to give you an opportunity to clarify your stance on this particular issue.
No, I am pro-life, but I'm also been an advocate for women who are victims of rape and incest, which is where you've seen a lot of my work on the issue. I've been working to protect women who are victims of sexual assault and rape and incest, and even domestic violence over my term in the State House.
Well, let's talk about race relations. In your tenure as a lawmaker, what have you done in bringing the community together, and what is your plan to end what many call and view systemic racism in law enforcement?
Right. And, there's so much division right now and rhetoric that is divisive. People feel emboldened. And we saw that with the King Street riots back in May. Just last week, previous to just a few hours before my second debate with Democrat Joe Cunningham, my car was keyed with an expletive on there that my children had to see. I only have one car to take me to and from events and to take the kids to and from their activities. It's really unfortunate that's where we are. My work in the community and those communities actually started before I was a state lawmaker. When Mother Emanuel happened, that was devastating to our community. But we came together and were united. And one of the things that I did at that time as a private citizen was to help start a scholarship for African American students coming out of the AME community at the Citadel, my alma mater right here in town, because I grew up here, I've seen the disparities. The difference between rich and poor is literally black and white in many of our communities. Now, as a state lawmaker, I've worked on criminal justice reform and prison reform. Those are issues that are very important to those communities that we look at ways that we can improve. And also education is another one, improving education, giving parents opportunities to have their children educated, no matter the color of their skin or their zip code or how much money they make.
We're going to end on that note. Representative Nancy Mace, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it so much.